Welcome to XXXtra exclusive with me, Levisage Philip McCullough. Today I have the immense pleasure of having alongside me the world sensation, Loki. Thank you very much for joining us, Loki.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for being here. We had a brief chat earlier. You said you came in Thursday to the UK. Mm-hmm. Is this your first time in the UK or have you been here before?
No, I've been here plenty of times before, but this is the first time I've been here in 4 years.
Marvellous. Has anything changed in particular or is it exactly how you remember it?
Oh no, it's way different. The last time I was here was with the WWE.
Oh, okay.
And we were in Manchester, but with that type of scheduling and that company, it's very difficult to really have a chance to enjoy the places that you're at unless you have an extended time frame. And I was probably here less than 24 hours the last time I was here.
So kind of shipped in, shipped out type of thing.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to see more of the British culture or get into the British culture while you've been here, or has it been just as fast paced for you this time?
Just as fast paced because we've had to work the past 2 days. So, just a little bit of time after the event just to relax and try to readjust to the time zone. And, the one thing I'll say is that the environment has improved greatly because of the attitudes of the people around wrestling, especially here in the UK. It doesn't seem to be as available as it once was. Mm-hmm. So it seems like when wrestling comes around, people are way more appreciative and more willing to engage and just enjoy the moment. And, that's something that you don't necessarily see a lot with WWE.
Okay, excellent. So have you had a chance to say maybe get some fish and chips or a beer down the pub or maybe a bit of bingo?
Well, I'm not big on chips. Just because I was recently introduced, well, not too recently, but I was introduced to sweet potato fries. So I'm kind of
just the best.
I got a bias now, But I had a couple of drinks last night and just finally enjoyed some rest after 2 days on, after some pretty rough travel. Okay,
excellent stuff. So just going through a brief bit of your history, you started off over at the Long Island Wrestling Federation.
Yes.
Moving over to All Jersey Pro.
Jersey All Pro, yeah.
Sorry, Jersey All Pro. I knew I was going to get that bit wrong, and it's even in front of me now.
That's okay.
And then after a brief stint with WWE, you moved over to Ring of Honor.
Well, it was actually WWF at the time.
Ah, you see, I wanted to put WWF, but I wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah, it was before they made the brand change.
Excellent. Okay. So WWF, and then you moved to Ring of Honor on a more, say, permanent basis, or you were there for about 4 years to begin with?
Well, Ring of Honor began in 2002, and I was the feature for the company as directed by the booker. I was there for the first 2 years more consistently, but I spent most of my time in Japan at that time before 01 Pro Wrestling.
Ah, yes, okay, good. And how did you find the step from, say, for instance, being at the WWF at the time to Ring of Honor? How did you find the companies differed in any way?
Well, my first opportunity with WWF was August of 2000. And I was very fortunate in that respect because being from New York, my first opportunity with them was in Madison Square Garden.
So it's literally on your doorstep.
Yeah. And, you take pride in that, being able to wrestle at home. And going from there to Ring of Honor was some time. It was actually 2 years. But that was the trail end of the Attitude Era. So I was around more of those older veterans, highly successful and a part of that era.
I was going to say that was around about the 1999-2000. The Attitude
Era. It was towards the end, yeah. And so I had a lot of knowledge around me. So I was able to really get good advice and then just develop friendships with a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise. Considering how early it was in my career, I was very fortunate to have a lot of information around me. And then going into Ring of Honor was a brand new upstart company that Rob Feinstein wanted to create. And it was based off of my sportsmanship that I was displaying in the Northeast region. when it began. I was the only guy who was handshaking before and after matches out of respect to the performances of the wrestlers. And that's my martial arts discipline coming into play.
Okay. So is the kind of that, so your style suited Ring of Honor being the part of the honor beat with the high handshake and the...
Well,
and the
Feinstein's approach with Ring of Honor was to create something different than what was current. And at that time, you had WCW on the end of its life. ECW was hit and miss at the time. And WWF was, or excuse me, WWE by 2002, you know, they had already moved on into the next generation. Guys like Brock and, or I'm sorry, I think it was that class was like Cena, Randy Orton. You know, they were moving into the new era.
And Cody Rhodes and...
Well, like he came later. But, you know, they were vastly different because of the knowledge base that was available. And Ring of Honor at that time, it being a new company, everybody was eager, excited about the new opportunity. And most of the roster was just young and hungry. And it was just another platform for guys to go out there and just go hard to get noticed. And
kind of no limits to what they could do. One of the things I wanted to ask, and you were kind of around at that point you just alluded to, when WWF/E brought out WCW, did you or other guys think that might have closed the door in opportunity, or do you think it actually opened the doors for a lot, for instance, Ring of Honor to actually go, you know what, we can put something else on and we can do something different?
I don't even think that was a thought at that time. At that time,
what, for you personally or for everyone, for people in general?
I think in general.
Oh, okay.
No one really cared because WCW was dying, was dead. WWE bought it out and just absorbed the contracts or the roster guys that they brought aboard. That wasn't a concern for guys at my level at that time.
So regardless of what happened, it wouldn't have made a difference whether they carried on or not? No.
I think the guys are more concerned about just having opportunities and capitalizing off of them, regardless of where they were.
Okay. As we talked about Ring of Honor, obviously, and you was not only successful there, but you wrestled some of the best wrestlers around, people like Austin Aries, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Doug Williams, who we had here last month, and Bryan Danielson. What was that period like at Ring of Honor for you guys and for the fans? And just mentioning a few of those names who have been focal points at TNA. I know some have left and some are still there, but do you think that that TNA made the most of those guys, the Aries, the AJs, the Joes, while they're there or while they were there?
Well, those guys are exceptionally gifted wrestlers. They're exceptional people too.
Okay, that's very nice to hear.
And that's a testament to their work ethic. And most of these larger companies don't take the time to understand or even learn about their guys. They get somebody under contract and then they tell them what to do as if the previous amount of time they've spent in wrestling is irrelevant. And it's unfortunate.
So it's just kind of like them, they've got their own little action figure and they're going to play the game they want to play rather than what the action figure can actually do.
Case in point, Bryan Danielson in WWE. How long has that taken? And
it's as long as you. I mean, like, were you together in the same series as NXT?
No, he was the first series. I was the second series.
So it's still taken 5, 6.
But the thing is, with guys of that type of skill, what's the sense in wasting time when the companies need boosts in their business? And the bottom line is, people are coming to see these guys perform at their best. Why are you wasting time making them do things that is not their best?
One of the points or one of the things that have been said, I know it's either internet rumours or people talk, and that's why I don't want to go into it too much. But what a lot of people do say is that because he was already such a big star before he came in, he's not a WWE made star, and that was an issue, kind of. If you see what I mean, where they haven't made him a star, he was a star when he arrived. And do you think that they've kind of gone, well, actually, you work for us now, we're going to keep you here and then let you be when we want you to be? You think that might have played a part?
Oh, that's most definitely a big factor in that. They did the same thing to me. I'm more accomplished than some of their main eventers, and they're presenting me as a rookie. It doesn't make any logical sense, especially when if you want to go based off of skill. I outclassed guys on their roster, and it had gone far back to when I was doing tryouts back in 2000 to 2002, where I'm an unsigned wrestler getting instant replays on their television events. Why is that? Because I work hard for it. I take pride in my work. I work very hard, and I'm developing higher level skill than most of these guys can even imagine. Why? Because I take pride in it. I'm not doing this for the sake of doing this. I'm passionate about what I do, and I work hard for it. Just like Dragon, just like Christopher Daniels, just like Samoa Joe, just like Austin Aries. But then when we get to these companies, it's as if that's all irrelevant. It doesn't matter. When you take an artist and you no longer allow him to be the artist, that's going to be a bad situation, you know, and it doesn't necessarily mean bad for them. It's going to be bad for business. And the public is not stupid, although these companies sometimes treat them as if they are. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of money that could be possibly made if it was done the correct way. But, you know, sometimes it's just not the way it goes.
Okay, so well, I was gonna get to the point. Gonna get to a question later on about NXT. Just got a couple more questions about you personally.
Okay.
I don't, like many wrestlers, the main aim is wrestling in Japan. How do you think that it improved you as a wrestler wrestling over in Japan?
Well, that was my goal. That was my ultimate goal, to go to Japan and to be accepted into the Japanese wrestling culture. My first introduction to that was watching the Great Muta in the NWA back in the 80s. He stood apart from everyone else. His style was different from everyone else. His persona, different from everyone else. While everyone was liking Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and Sting, I liked Muta. He just presented something so different from everyone else, it was intriguing to me. And I was a wrestling fan, just like most kids. But that really stood out for me. And then the introduction of Japanese pro wrestling in 1992, where WCW had the relationship with New Japan, and they would air some of their matches on WCW television. I had a chance to watch Chris Benoit when he was the Pegasus Kid against Jushin Thunder Liger in the Tokyo Dome. And
Two brilliant workers.
Yeah, exactly. And they're legendary. And after seeing that and seeing the audience size and seeing the style of wrestling that they had, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And at that time, I had no interest in being a wrestler. I was content just being like any other kid, just watching it and, you know, just imagining it. When I began wrestling and realized that I could do very well with it, that became my goal. It seemed reasonable. It seemed like this was attainable. I can get there. So I worked hard, and my goal was to go to Japan, and I really didn't put that out there. I just wanted to take every opportunity as it came and do as best as I could with it to get attention. And that's how it turned out. I ended up getting an email one day, and they said, hey, they would like to invite you to 01 Pro Wrestling. What do you think? All right, let's do it. And that actually was at the time where I was heavily involved in Ring of Honor as their champion. I was the X Division champion for TNA at the time. So, I mean, all of my momentum was going upwards. And then, boom, I get a chance to achieve my dream. So I went for it. And, I mean, it was definitely an interesting experience because you're going in, and I went in there by myself. Like, I didn't necessarily have a lot of guidance from older wrestlers on, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I was very fortunate because I just did it the old-fashioned way. I went in there and earned their respect. I trained hard, I worked hard, I made sure I kept a professional demeanor and didn't get into trouble like a lot of foreigners do. You know, getting drunk and getting arrested and doing stupid things. Like, I never did any of that. I did what I was there to do. And because I did it with respect and I did it with dignity, you know, it earned me a lot of respect in return, and it just paid off. Everything just seemed to keep rolling in that direction, and ultimately I was able to create history.
Excellent. It sounds like you was about for about 7 years, a 7-year stint initially, I think. Initially
it was a 4-year stint, 2002 to 2006 when I came back to TNA.
That's great. What do you, sorry to cut you off there. What do you think the difference is with Japanese wrestling to the American wrestling? Not the style, more the product and the way it's presented to the audience. What do you think are the main differences?
It's presented more like a larger sporting event.
This is in Japan.
Yeah. Rather than a form of entertainment.
Okay.
That demeans the value of the athletes. Regardless of what anyone says, we're not sports entertainers. We're not soap opera action stars. I don't care what the WWE is trying to call these wrestlers. We're wrestlers because there is no off season for us. We train nonstop. There is no pension. There is no pot of gold at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the rainbow. You know, this is a hard life. So for anyone to demean the value of these men and women who put their bodies on the line is just irresponsible. So these are athletes.
So you would say, as an example, the Japanese promotions or the federations look after their guys better in a personal sense, or create, like as you said, like make it more about wrestling and the real art rather than a big showcase.
Yes.
Okay.
But the thing is, they also are very good at presentation in Japan. So on their larger events, you will see larger, more entertainment value presentations associated with the wrestling. And, you know, they do it really, really well. Okay. And, you know, that adds, especially to that larger atmosphere. Like in Japan, the biggest event is Wrestle Kingdom, which is their version of WrestleMania.
Okay.
But that's when all the promotions, all the major promotions come together. And, you know, they arrange roster exchanges leading up to that, and then they perform at this mass event, which, you know, it's in the Tokyo Dome. So that's
a good 80,000, 90,000.
They haven't packed it like they used to, but it's on the rise once more because the quality of it has returned.
Oh, brilliant. I'd say actually it leads perfectly into the next question there. Where you said you obviously returned in 2006. At that time, I think you became the X Division champion again. I think possibly 2006.
Yes.
And at that time, I think between 2006 and 2008, that's where you had all the main X Division guys. So you had the Peter Williams, the Sanjay Dutts, the Alex Shelleys, the Chris Sabins, those kind of guys. Daniels as well. I think might be wrestling the Suicide at the time. Do you think that TNA got the recognition it deserved for that X Division at that time when it was at its peak, possibly?
Absolutely not.
Do you think that was undeserved, or do you think it was because of something they were doing, or was it because people think they were just a cheap WWE?
It was completely what TNA was doing. Because think of it at the beginning, what gave TNA its identity? The X Division. These young men who came from all over, were highly skilled in what they did, were allowed opportunities to showcase their skills in reasonable formats. After the time I had arrived the second time in TNA back in 2006, those opportunities were no longer there. They were trying to cram in these guys and not necessarily allowing them to showcase their skills in the best form. So you see a lot of multiple matches, 4-mans, 3-mans, 5-mans, sometimes larger. That's not fair to the presentation of these people.
And they're getting lost within the match.
But you can tell that the company had no longer any focus on accentuating what gave them their identity in the first place. So that's why you see the decline. And you have to think of it this way: with a roster of such talented individuals, why do they have such difficulty with ratings?
And it's they've kind of had the same ratings for the last 4 or 5 years in a row. Even when they brought Hulk Hogan in, they didn't peak, they didn't spike. They've been around about that 1.1.
I always said the same thing with you just mentioning Bischoff and Hogan. How can you hire two guys who are at the helm of a multi-million-dollar company and allowed it to go under? How can you hire them reasonably, and think that they're going to turn your company around?
Giving them free reign. You would imagine they would have free reign.
And that has nothing to do with these guys. I don't know them personally. I've never even worked with them. But it's a logical observation. These guys ran a multi-million-dollar company into the ground. Now you're going to give them the keys to yours? It seems irresponsible.
It is a celebration. You just picked up on the first TNA show. If I remember correctly, it was yourself, AJ Styles, and was it James Storm in a 3-man?
No.
Sorry, 6-man tag. It wasn't James Storm.
No, it was me, AJ, and Jerry Lynn against the Flying Elvises.
And that made me wonder. I mean, obviously, I watched that back not too long ago, so I didn't have the opportunity to see it back then. But I think I remember the Flying Elvises. To me, they although they're very skilled, they just think it was a bit of a comedy thing, and then to put you three guys in and to lose to them as well, it was a weird thing for me to see. Kind of like, why would you? I mean, did you think that at the time, or was it just it is what it is?
Didn't care.
Okay.
Because to me, it was one, I wasn't in the suit, so I didn't have the same sentiment as the other guys, and I knew the other guys were wrestlers. That was not what they worked for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to show up, to be hired for what you think you're good at, and then to be told, no, you're doing this, that messes with you. But in all fairness to them, they came to work. It wasn't as if it was that much of an issue. And we went out there, and as the first match of the company,
and it was a brilliant match.
We went out there as all young guys, I mean, at the time, Jerry Lynn had so much experience. AJ had more experience than I did. I was probably the least experienced guy in that ring. And all of those guys were class acts. All of those guys were excellent wrestlers. And we just made it work.
I suppose it wasn't as bad as image as the Johnsons that were on that night as
well. Well, that's the thing.
Two guys dressed as penises.
You have to understand, when TNA began, there was still a residual element of WCW, because there was a lot of elements from WCW at that time. So you're going to see a lot of the relevant, ideas from WCW, and you saw how long it took to weed all of that out.
Of course, and then for it to actually filter back in.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about when you were in WWF earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
You joined the WWE development, in Florida Championship Wrestling. You were there for about 2 years, I think, before they moved you onto NXT.
It was about a year and a half.
A year and a half. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, I mean, we talked about the people you've wrestled, and again, you were wrestling the big names at the time, all up and comings, plus the people like the Bryan Danielsons when you were in the Florida Championship Wrestling, Trent Beretta, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the Florida Championship Wrestling, was it a year and a half long tryout for you? Do you think they were trying to mould you in what they wanted you to do? Or was it just, for you, was it just another job? Or was it a way in,
I saw it in a few different ways. The first thing was, they never asked me to go to FCW. I showed up there because I wanted to maintain my in-ring sharpness.
Okay.
I wanted to maintain my in-ring skill. But that was a mistake, because the minute I showed up, they thought that they could keep me there. 1 month in, I blow up my ACL.
Ow. And
they kept me out of the ring for 10 months. So, most of that time was spent in rehab, but dealing with stuff that I had no business dealing with down there in the first place. That was a fraudulent environment, and no matter what.
For you as a wrestler, or?
No, it's a fraudulent environment for wrestlers.
Oh, okay.
Because they call it the developmental environment for WWE, but everything you learn in FCW goes out the window the minute you go up on the roster. And that's unfair, because these men and women are training 5-6 days a week. If not, they're doing 2 or 3 shows on the weekends on top of training, 4 to 5 days a week. This is their livelihoods. And again, you only have one body. So there's only so much your body can take. And then on top of that, the psychological games that they play down there, the disrespect that goes on that the public never sees. When I first went up on the road and then came back down, I was asked by one of the coaches, what do you think? I said, it doesn't matter what I think. I said, I'm reserving my right to remain silent. And he didn't like that.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, no, go ahead and explain it. So I said, okay, cool. I told the other guys, I said, it's bullshit. It makes no sense to come down here and train all this time with these coaches just for you to go up there and be told that everything you were taught is wrong. It's counterproductivity against the business, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's a wasted effort when you have so many men and women under contract. The company is paying for this, So it doesn't make any logical sense for business, you know, but that's the way they organize their company. So, you know, I have no problems not being there.
I think Jim Cornette kind of alluded to the fact that when he was down there, it was kind of a similar thing. He was saying that he'd get told one thing, or he'd do one thing, then get told to do another thing, have someone sit down and told him to do that, and then when they went back up to the main, everything could change. While you were there, obviously, how did the approach for you to? You talked about going into NXT. How did that come about? Was that why you in Florida Championship, or did I say, "Oh, we've got a great move for you, and it's going to be as a rookie"?
It was after I came back in November of 2009.
Oh, that's after you
I recovered and came back at that time, and that's when they were gearing up to go into season 1 of NXT.
Okay.
So they had already made their selections, and you know, I thought I would be in there just so they can get me the hell out of FCW.
Yeah. Start earning some money.
And the thing is, again, I'm down in FCW. I have more skill than all those guys, but I have to wrestle on these events down here and potentially get hurt further, where that's not what you're paying me to do. You know, I'm coming in experienced and a certified attraction at that point, and you're wasting me down on these low budget shows that no one is showing up to.
Somebody who's ring ready and can work.
Exactly.
And
like I said, I have more experience than some of their main eventers at that time. So what's the sense in wasting my time with that? So at any rate, NXT season 1 goes on, then they start bringing us up. They give us the cue that we're going to be on season 2, but they don't tell us anything about it. The first time I found out about the whole rookie situation with the girls was when they presented it on television. And I'm watching it, and they come up on the screen and they present me as their rookie, and I was just like, this is wrong.
So
you don't do this.
You were partnered, was it with Michelle McCullough? Was it? You were
Michelle McCullough and Layla.
And was I saw, if I remember, was Kofi Kingston in that group?
He was in the group, yeah.
He was in that group as well. So they were your mentors?
The girls were.
Which made lots of sense.
Of course.
Obviously, you won.
Mm-hmm.
You won the series. I want to say you won, but obviously you were the winner of that season. Obviously, people that you were with have gone on to do. I think Husky Harris was in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's now Bray Wyatt, doing well for himself there.
Mm-hmm.
You debuted in the September in SmackDown. Had some good matches. You went over on Dolph Ziggler. Done the Survivor Series pay-per-view, and then that was you kind of finished in the December. You had a really short run. Was there any particular reason?
Well, they never wanted me there in the first place. They made that very clear when I got my tryouts in November of 2008. Johnny Ace clearly told, but Dave Bautista was the one who went to Johnny Ace and was like, why isn't this guy signed? And Johnny was just making up excuses. Oh, I don't know if the writers will have anything for him, which doesn't make any sense.
You don't need to if you've got skill. Sure,
exactly.
You just go in there and do your thing.
So, at any rate, he gives me the tryout, and then from that, from what I was told, Vince saw the tryout match, and then I had a meeting with Vince after the match was over, and I told Vince straight to his face. I said, I want Ray, and he liked that idea. And because of that, that's what led to me being signed. But, you know, just spending all that time honing my craft and doing what is traditionally the right thing to do, earning your experience and respect, didn't seem to matter when you got there.
So you would say, as an example, you got into WWE on pure skill alone, and was kind of let go just for the fact that they didn't want you, and they didn't want me there. They didn't want you there, but had to have you because of.
Well, they didn't have to have me.
Well, no, they didn't have to have you, but people were saying, you've got to look at this guy. He's got some serious skill. You've been put on the TV. People like you. People wanted to see you, and then it's just, well, we can just hide you all of a sudden.
The thing is, I mean, the audience, your customers, your paying customers, have voted for me to succeed.
And was that a genuine? So I don't mean a genuine as in the audience was voting for you, but that was actually because like when you watch these shows, sometimes you might think, oh, they're just making it up. They just say whoever. So that was a genuine. The audience were genuinely voting, and that
I
was
almost got fired the week before the episode before the finale. Because of the total nonstop action comment.
Oh, what really? They were going to
fire me because of that.
Oh, crikey.
And the reason being is because I mentioned the competition on their television.
Of course.
But when I spoke to Vince, I told him, I said,
that's created a lot of heat, and that's probably what got you.
Well, no, I went to Vince.
Okay.
And he was like, well, what was up with that comment? And I told him why. And he goes, okay, that was it. Johnny Ace was the one who was all bent out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no problems otherwise. I found out later that after that was said, if you remember, there was a segment after that segment, after they went to commercial break, Michael Cole and I forgot his name.
Is it Matt Striker?
Not Matt. The other young kid. He
yes, the guy
Matthews.
The guy with the Tom Matthews.
Yeah, he. They had an in-ring segment where they were just putting me down, and it didn't make any sense. But it was because Vince was pissed off, so he sent them out there. But I heard from one of the staff that they said they heard on the earpiece that they were trying to figure out how they can fire me within that time period.
Within a week?
No, within the few minutes after I had said, total nonstop action. And that was an FU to TNA.
Oh, yeah, of course.
For giving me, bullshit when I was there previously. But then now I got to deal with this bullshit in WWE, excuse my language. And, the audience supported me. Why? One, I was an underdog in this land of giants. But two, I outclassed these guys in the ring.
And it showed.
And it showed. Then the matchup that they had me with the girls, I understand the entertainment dynamic behind it. But you can see my face. I did not want to be there.
Yeah, I've never really been a mixed tag team match type person.
Well, no, not the mixed tag team match, but just the pairing of us.
Oh, okay.
Even to where, I got nothing personal against these girls. I didn't want them anywhere near me. Mm-hmm. But this was a circumstance that was presented, so I tried to make the best of it. They even had the segment where we had to kiss the lady. Mm-hmm. I forgot the woman's name. Where Layla kissed me, and I think they were trying to engage the audience into like a romantic pairing. Okay. But they had pissed me off so much, I didn't want nothing to do with those people. Like, I was showing up, and I was doing my best not to kill somebody in that ring, because that wouldn't have done any good for me. But it was extremely frustrating as an artist to go in there and to do what you're supposed to do best, only to have your hands tied, and only to be lied to constantly. Yeah. And it was just unfortunate. Then they had me go under to Jack Swagger, Drew McIntyre, in under 30 seconds on the final event that I was there.
And you kind of know that's the end, I suppose, now.
Well, I didn't know if that was the end or not, but I had heard from several people backstage that they were giving me clues as to, you're going to be very upset soon. And, we knew what was going on. The writing was on the wall. But those people are cowards. They will never say it to your face. They're brave behind the door. But one-on-one, eye to eye, they will never come to your face and tell you something. Especially somebody that they know they have no control over. Mm-hmm. Somebody that is not intimidated by them. Somebody that is not, believe in their hype. I've been around long enough, and I've gone through enough hell to understand that I'm not afraid of these guys.
Well, that's another question I wanted to come on. Just quickly, two final questions. Okay. After obviously leaving WWE, you moved back. Obviously, you've been back and forth for a while. You went over to Japan. More recently, you've had a few matches with Fergal Deville or Prince Devitt, sorry, over in Japan. There's rumours that he may be going over to WWE. How would you rate your matches, and how do you think he would fit in to that mould? Especially now that they've got NXT as a show, as their own show, how do you think he might fit in there with his style?
with his style.
I mean, do you think the same might happen to him? You think he might be kind of like moulded into what they want or restricted?
Devitt's he's a different person than I am. He's a lot more accepting. And he's a younger guy than I am too. I've seen enough to understand these environments. Before I arrived in WWE, I had plenty of friends who had been working there for years. Mm-hmm. So I understood what I was getting myself into.
And you'd already been there previously as well.
And I had already been there before the current environment. So I've been there in different eras to see the changes that have occurred. With Devitt, you know, if that's what he wants to do, I'll support him. You know, I have nothing against anyone trying to make money for them and their family.
I mean, obviously it's only a rumour that he might be going. It's just maybe a natural, now that he's left Japan, it might be a natural.
Whatever the case may be, if that's what he wants to do, cool. How successful he will be in that environment, I don't know. Because, again, that's an environment that has an incredibly talented roster, but you don't necessarily get to see the best of them.
Of course.
And it doesn't make sense why, if they're going to be paying all these men and women, you know, well to perform, and their hands are tied. It just doesn't make any sense business-wise.
It's a bit like having a Ferrari and pulling a caravan.
Yeah.
That's what we kind of say over it, yeah.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense, but, you know, he's skilled enough as far as in that environment. The ability to speak is very high, and I don't know how adaptive he'll be in that environment with the ability to speak. I know a lot of guys have a hard time because they're told one thing, so they do that one thing, and then the feedback they get is not necessarily what they expected, and that messes with them, you know, and then that creates an uneasy environment, that it creates lack of confidence in their own ability because they're not being showcased to their strengths.
The way that they've been performing in the indies,
mm-hmm.
whatever they...
So, you know, it's interesting to see if that's what he chooses to do. If he does, I wish him the best. If he doesn't, I wish him the best. You know, I have nothing against him. He's one of the competitors I've had the most fun with in the past couple of years, and he's earned his experience. You know, he came up in the young boy system in New Japan's dojo, and there's only a handful of wrestlers that have done that successfully.
I think
being Benoit,
Jericho,
or maybe not Jericho, but Eddie Guerrero, Too Cold Scorpio.
I think I read that he had the chance to go and live in the dojo, and he asked Benoit whether he should or not, and but yeah, I don't think he actually. Oh yes. So sorry, you were going on the list. Okay. I interrupted them.
But at any rate, you know, Devitt's earned his experience. So wherever he goes, he should be happy. You know, and he did very good business for TNA, for New Japan Pro Wrestling, to the point where they featured him, you know, very well, and you know, he's earned his name. So, you know, if that's where he wants to go for it. You know, hopefully he can do great in that environment. You know, and hopefully it has nothing to do. If they let him be him. If they let him be him. Sometimes that just may not work. You know, look at Sami Zayn. You know, El Generico. That's really his that's his personality.
Oh, okay.
You know, a lot of people don't know that. So if these guys take time to actually learn about these wrestlers where they haven't in the past and let them be themselves, you'll probably see a lot more positive environment.
You were with Al Generico. Was it Guerrilla Pro? Was it you were wrestling down with Al Generico in Guerrilla Pro with David Richards and Chris Hero?
Years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, I didn't mean last week. I mean, a few years ago. I'm trying to pull you back. I'm regressing you towards the end of the interview. Final question, so I can let you go and get ready for your match against Zack Sabre Jr. You've managed to be extremely successful all over the world, and what seems to be your own terms. You've done what you wanted, when you wanted, how you wanted. Haven't worried about the consequences, i.e. when you first left TNA, you wasn't like, oh, maybe they might not have me back. You just said, I want to leave, I'm going to Japan, see you later. And you come back and they took you back in.
But I did it, the way I did that was I did it in a professional manner.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you're disrespectful. What I'm saying is you've done what you wanted to do on your terms. So in a professional and respectful manner, you've done everything you wanted to do your own way. Have you got any advice for not necessarily up-and-coming wrestlers, but guys who have been going 4, 5, 6 years and want to go to the next level? Would you just say it's just basically respect and discipline?
Well, see, that's the thing. In our profession, you hear this from a lot of older guys. Respect is the bottom line. That'll carry you way farther than anything else, which is true. But when you're getting disrespected by the older guys, you're kind of creating a rift in that belief system.
Do you think maybe if more older, experienced guys maybe being disrespectful to new guys, it's just because it's competition for them?
It's a little of that. It's also a little of the attitudes of the younger generation.
Okay.
There's a big gap between the older generation of wrestlers and the current generation now. That's the reason why the pace of improvement has slowed.
So there's kind of no middle ground.
There's no middle ground. I'm the last of the recent generation, but was groomed by the previous generation.
I said, because you have, I mean, even though you can count back and say it's been 16 years since your debut, it's not really, I mean, when you say 1998, it doesn't really seem that long ago, so to speak, so I can see what you're saying. You're maybe that last, that last middle bit to bring the young guys up to that middle part of your career.
Because I was groomed by older generation people, so my value system began with them. Whereas this current generation, they're clueless, and there's no disrespect to them, but they haven't had the guidance to lead them down the right path to have more efficient business, be conducted for them. And it's just, unfortunately, as excited as anyone may be to get into a ring and call themselves a wrestler, they're going to run into the business side of it too, if they want to make this a career. So usually there's a conflict of interest eventually between the two sides. There's the old saying, you let the artist be the artist and get out of the way. That doesn't exist in pro wrestling, because most of the people who are in charge have never been wrestlers.
Which makes for difficult reading.
Yes, difficult relationship. And I think it's unfortunate, because I find it unfair for somebody to tell someone what to do with their body if they've never done it before themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a disconnect right there. But as far as advice goes towards younger wrestlers, your perception of me doing my career on my terms, there's been a lot of failures that have come along with my successes. And I've had to learn things the hard way. But I've always earned it. Despite what anyone says, I've earned, everything that I've gotten. And I think what a lot of people are trying to do is they're seeing if they see it on television or if they see it on a pay-per-view or a videotape, what they see most of the time is an end result of a series of events. So their perception is, okay, I see that, I like that, I want to do that, I want to get there. They don't understand how long it took to get there.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to be at that point.
I had this discussion earlier when Bryan Danielson and I tag teamed on the 900th episode of Monday Night Raw.
Okay.
I'm backstage, and Chris Jericho comes up to me, and he was kind of like warming up, staying loose before walking out. And he goes, "How long did it take you to get here?" And I was like, at that time, about 10 years. He goes, "It took you 10 years to get here?" I was like, "Yeah." Shook my hand. He goes, "Congratulations, man." He understood, because he's lived that same style.
He'd gone down to Puerto Rico.
He's gone all over the place just to get there. He understands what it took, or he understood what it took to arrive at that point. He complimented me for that. That felt good, because he recognized the journey.
Yes, of course, because he'd done it himself. Yeah.
Most people don't. They don't understand how long and how hard it is going to be successful in professional wrestling. And I think that's the illusion that everyone's in love with. That's the illusion everyone is in love with. They think the bright lights, the pyros, your name on the screen, people chanting your name, that's all going to come.
You've got a look in a body, there you go, in the ring.
That's not coming unless you put the work in for it. And you have to be consistent. If you're inconsistent, your value will be challenged. I've been consistent my entire career. You can always see my improvement. I've gotten more and more and more efficient. I've done things on my terms, but my terms seem to rub people the wrong way because I don't believe in bullshit. I don't believe in lying to people when there's business at hand. because I don't believe in catering to people's egos. I don't believe in, I'm gonna do you a favor, and because I do you a favor, you're gonna do me a favor. And if that guy gets in the way, you're gonna do me another favor by getting rid of him. Like, I'm not into all this shady nonsense that this 1980s mentality seems to be stuck in professional wrestling and management.
It's because all the management were 1980s wrestlers, I suppose.
They're not wrestlers, but the thing is, it blows my mind. If we all work together for a common goal, and we accentuated each other's strengths, everybody would be doing well. It doesn't seem to be the mindset, because everyone is worried about, oh, this guy's coming in, I got to screw him before he screws me. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, that's the adopted business approach, and it doesn't have to be. But if that's how they want to do it, you can look at television shows now in regards to pro wrestling and see how badly they are. Badly they're constructed.
We could talk for hours on just on that alone.
But you see what I mean? I'm not pulling any punches in this.
Oh no! Oh, of course, and and I thank you for your openness as well. But I think we'll leave it there, because I've took up about 45 minutes of your time.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your time, and you're going back to the States tomorrow. So you haven't got any more dates here this year. Are you coming back at any point? Have you got anything scheduled in? Or
currently, there's nothing scheduled.
Nothing scheduled. What are you doing when you get back to the States?
I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying my traveling, coming here to the UK. This experience has been pretty good.
Excellent.
Way more positive than the last one, which was with WWE. And I got more events coming up as I go home. But it just feels good to be back traveling, and being able to sit down and speak with people of different cultures and different views.
Living out of a suitcase, driving around in a camper then.
Yeah. That's the life I chose, so I can't really complain about it. I kind of accepted that on the way in.
Fair enough. Loki, thank you very, very much for your time. Enjoy your match against Zack Sabre Jr. later on.
I'll try.
Yeah, and your flight home, and hopefully we'll see you again back in the UK, maybe next year.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.